7:31. Today is Wednesday, June 15th. It's an Inland Wetlands Agency meeting. First item on the agenda this evening is a continuation of a public hearing, Litchfield Turnpike LLC, 10 and 14 Merritt Avenue. Mr. Nuff, if you want to come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, John Nuff, attorney at 147 Broad Street, on behalf of the applicant, Litchfield Turnpike LLC. With me this evening is Bill Kenny, our landscape architect and wetland scientist. Unfortunately, John Paul Garcia cannot be with us this evening because of recent knee surgery, but if you have any questions, he's available by cell phone. So I think where we left things last time is we were going to provide a updated landscape plan, and Bill Kenny can walk you through that. And I know there was a request for a more thorough functions and values analysis that Bill has prepared and has submitted, and your own consultant, Martin Brogy, has already opined on the quality of that functions and values analysis. I would note that I don't think we need to go into it because Bill had actually described it orally last 2 months ago, so I don't want to belabor this, but it's in the record now, and your own consultant has offered his opinion in response to that, which is supportive, of course. I would just note before Bill takes you through the revised landscape plan, is that there was, I think, 2 recommendations in Mr. Brogy's report dated June 9th. One was for a sort of a pathway to maintain the basin, and we're happy to add that to the plan as a condition of approval. Then also there was a suggestion regarding pruning and cutting of existing trees, and we're happy to do that as well. So with that quick intro, I'm going to turn it over to Bill Kenny to walk you through the landscape plan.
Okay. Bill, if you want to just come up, pull your chair up next to John, that way,
Sure.
If there's any questions back and forth, it's easier.
I might stand just like a hold.
Okay, sure, yep. Mhm.
This is the plan. At the last meeting, there was a request for a typical planting plan for around the different dwelling units, so we provided that. We're proposing native plants even for what I want to call ornamental planting associated with the dwelling units, so those are all native plants. There was a request to adjust the alignment of the house on lot 9 to pull it further away from the wetlands, so that was done. And request for additional monitoring, 3 years of monitoring and maintenance, and a guarantee for 3 years. That's the guarantee for the plant material did not make it on here, but we're pleased to add that as a condition. That was the scope of the changes that were made.
Yeah, and maybe I forgot, was the walkway along the river with the Conservation Commission ever resolved? I mean, there was some discussion back and forth. Do you know anything about that, John, or?
I don't. Again,
Okay.
I'd be happy to contact John Paul, but I mean, certainly we'll be dealing with that once we get to P&Z.
Yeah, exactly. I was just curious, so, okay. All right. Mr. Brogy, do you have any other comments or additions or, to what's been presented?
Hi, good evening, Martin Brogy here for the record. I don't, everything that I raised in my latest letter has been addressed
Mm-hmm.
by this presentation.
Okay, all right. Okay, anybody up here have any questions?
I do not.
Okay.
Yes. Mr. Brogy, at one of the last meetings, you agreed that there would, that there may be some justification for changes to the wetland function and analysis provided by Mr. Kinney. You agreed that it would be a good idea to get more of that. And then we got Mr. Kinney's report of May 13, and then you generated a June 9 report that said that that was all you needed to conclude that the analysis of wetland functions and values as they were portrayed by Mr. Kinney was my words, all right, or not, wouldn't produce any negative impacts, I suppose. Those weren't your words, but, so is it so then that the comments of Mr. Kenny, without making any changes to his conclusions, his comments, his explanations were sufficient to change your mind or persuade you that as the chart was originally proposed, it might benefit from further analysis or change?
I think I understand that
Thanks.
was actually a question. Yeah, the functions and values report prepared subsequent to our last meeting was fully elaborated and described the wetlands functions and values appropriately and came to appropriate conclusions as indicated in my report.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything that, we've been talking about this for several months now, so, anybody else have anything else they want to ask?
I have another point
Okay,
for you,
sure.
Mr. Kenny. So what was your conclusion with respect to your search of the natural diversity database? Was it your conclusion that this project fell outside of the state's national diversity database?
Yes, that it would not have an effect on any listed species. We, in our letter of April 12th, on page 2, second paragraph, we discussed this. Two areas of the property, the eastern portion and the western portion. The western portion associated with the river, and the eastern portion starts to get close to West Rock. Did fall within the shaded zones that on the maps that the state maintains, where there could be a species somewhere within those shaded zones. They don't like to pinpoint an exact location to help for the protection of the individual animals or plants that might exist there. So when you are located in a close proximity to one of those shaded zones, you then submit a request to the state and ask for them to provide.
Hey, John, can you just move the microphone off over a little bit more so that they can hear better?
And ask the state to provide their assessment of the project and the potential for an impact. So we did make that submission, and they issued a letter on March 25th, which we included with our letter in April. And this is from Shannon Carney, the wildlife biologist with Connecticut Deep. And she states in her first sentence, "I've reviewed natural diversity database maps and files regarding this project. I do not anticipate negative impacts to state-listed species resulting from your proposed activity at the site. This determination is good for 2 years."
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. And I have another, so I've been hung up a little bit on the pre and post-development impacts on the resources, and I've spent a little time concentrating on that. And I still am struck by the conclusion that there won't be any impacts to any of the wetlands functions or based upon the extent of the disturbance and the development we're anticipating from the map. And so I ran around the internet and I tried to find where you might have reviewed other projects that where you have prepared a chart or so for pre and post development. I wondered what would it look like somewhere else. And were you involved in a project at 980 High Street in Fairfield?
Correct.
So I found a map, I found your chart on the internet with respect to that property, and, I was a little surprised to see that pre- and post-development changes were not. So here, there wasn't from what I could tell, wasn't expected to be any change after the development. And then, were you also involved in a project at 206 North Street in Roxbury?
I believe that, I was involved with a project in Roxbury. I assume it's that address. I can't
About
remember.
sometime after 2018. So you could sense what's coming. I found another chart, and I didn't see,
I have a
again,
lot of charts like that out in the public.
say that again?
I've worked on hundreds, thousands of projects, so you could find a lot of those charts.
I'm sure. So again, just
don't
as
have
I
a
saw on the other one, I saw that you had concluded there'd be no changes in post-development, as opposed to the existing conditions pre-development. So, you want to?
Is there a question?
So you commented on that. Your explanation for that is that these charts do vary, don't they? I guess in your practice, based upon the project, you have prepared charts that show impacts post-development, or have you ever had a project that you concluded would have impacts post-development?
Yes.
Okay.
I was just before the Bethlehem Wetlands Agency last night where I proposed that.
Were you representing, if you don't mind my asking, were you representing there, engaged on behalf of the applicant developer or on behalf of the town?
I was there on behalf of a neighbor.
Okay, so an intervener, somebody who was opposed to the project?
Yes.
Well,
Now, I'll tell you, the applicant had filled in a vernal pool and wasn't proposing to
Remediate?
remediate. So, anyway.
We should, excuse me, we should note, though, in this situation, there's no activity in wetlands that might, be determinative of an impact to, post-development impact to wetlands. But, and I guess we've also had independent review by another expert of what's been proposed. So the fact that Mr. Kane may have other charts out there that show no impacts, I don't think is particularly relevant, but anyway, in my mind, so,
Fine, thank you.
yeah. Mhm. All right, anyone else have any other questions?
No, I just want to say, I think that all of my concerns have been taken care of to the extreme. Okay, very pleased with what's been done and what's been changed.
Yeah, and I also just want to comment and thank you for all the cooperation in the evolution of this project. Whereas some of us aren't crazy about what the zone is down there and what it permits, there's not much we could do about that part of it. But you've working with what is legally permitted down there as far as zoning goes, I think you've done a decent job protecting, especially the river. I mean, that's really the only thing of significance from a wetland standpoint and our agency standpoint there, from my view of it. And in fact,
Improving.
yeah, in fact, I think, neighbors' concerns about flooding may be actually improved by, the compensatory storage there and the way the drainage is then diverted away from many of their properties and head toward the river where it's stored and then infiltrates into the water table in the river. So anyway, that's my read of what you folks have submitted over the course of time. So anybody else have any questions or comments? Otherwise, we're probably ready to close the hearing after several months. So.
Yeah, I have nothing.
Nothing further, thank you, Bob.
Okay. All right, do we have a motion to close the public hearing then?
So moved. I'll
Josh,
second.
Josh moved, Jack seconded, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstentions? Okay, we're all set, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll stick around once if you figure I'm going
Yeah, we have a little bit of a difference of opinion on that for tonight, so I think, we'll hear, we'll go through the next couple applications and, the new ones, and then we'll come back to yours at that point, so, okay.
Do you think you'll have any more information from me or?
No, at this point, we can't anyway, so therefore, thank you very much. We really appreciate your help and your advice and your review of everything, okay? Thank you. Yeah, take care. We will.
Take care, Marty.
Okay, just moving along, under new business, Rimmon Road LLC, 356 Rimmon Road, 3-lot subdivision application.
Mr. Shepherd this afternoon, and he wasn't sure how long your hearing continuation was gonna take.
Okay.
He wasn't anticipating making a presentation per se tonight,
Just
because you're just
submitting.
receiving it. He assumed that you would probably wanna schedule a site inspection to look at it. So he was just looking forward to whatever direction you had in terms of what you would want staked for him.
Okay.
And then he anticipated being here at your meeting in July.
Okay.
And
And this-
and then also, I didn't know, he asked if you were gonna submit it to, Jim Creedy for review, and I said, well, I'd find out from you guys.
Yeah, I think that makes sense to do that, and, given we have a lot of daylight hours, maybe some evening we could plan to meet out there. We'll talk about that in our site visit agenda item.
I was just gonna say, I'd like to do that after.
After you hear it?
After we
Okay,
hear what the proposal is.
yeah, all right, we could do,
That would-
yep.
I have the property adjacent to this, all right? And the maps that they
Can
submitted,
she
my
sign
name
in?
is Judy Hirschat.
If you
need
want
to
to
come
just,
up to
yeah,
the-
if you could just sign in, and
And
then
if you can sign it.
Sure.
this way they'll get you on the recording, so.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Judy Hirschat, and I own the property next to the possible division there. My concern is, number one, is that the map is not accurate. It's saying that it's accurate, but it's not. And one of the things is I own 2 properties there, and I own a total of 20-plus acres. And if you look at the map that was submitted, it looks like 1 acre or 2 acres of my property, and then everything is, their property in question. This would be on the one with has the number 3 house.
Yours is listed at 12 and 16 Deerfield, is that it?
It's also 1 Rimmon Road also. I own all 3.
Okay, I see, yes.
All right, I own all 3. But the thing is that number 1 is that number 16 is in the wrong location. It's further back, 12's first, and then 16 is second.
Okay.
So they've messed up on the information there. Number 2 is that where they show the wetlands adjacent to my property, it's much larger of an area than what they're showing. I probably have in that area about 1 acre of wetlands.
Well, are you referring to the wetlands that are on their property or that are
And
your
I'm
property?
talking about their property too.
Okay,
But the thing is that I'm just saying is that the wetlands are pretty exclusive. I have no problem, all right, to be honest with you, with house number 1 or 2. My concern is number 3, because of the fact of where it's located and where they've cut in. I own property in Woodbridge and in Ansonia and Seymour, based because of the way I'm on the town line there, okay? And the thing is that their measurement of the town indicator, things like that, are just not there.
well, what you may want to do, since we're not doing anything on this month, is talk to the surveyor. That may be a more productive, discussion, because, so call, Alan Shepherd, and if you can raise your concerns with him, then that'll probably be more helpful than telling us about it,
I understand, but I was just wanted to make sure that you were aware that having the property there, I mean, you know, I know that they didn't do my survey, so there's not question. The way they've got it situated like that, it looks like 1 acre of each lot, and it's 20 acres altogether between the three. And the thing is that I'm just concerned with the fact that the one location, which is according to them 12 Deerfield, there's a large area of wetlands, a large area, and it doesn't show it. And I'm just, and then the way they have the driveway in and things like that, it's going right into the area there. So I'm just concerned about the fact that you're endangering the wetlands.
Okay, well, basically, the way that this is probably gonna work is that they'll come back next month, make a presentation on this. We'll schedule a site visit. We typically don't have a meeting in August, so it'll be bumped till September. And then we'll start talking about it again. That's probably the timeline here.
Understand.
So, you know, you can, like I said, I would, if I were you, I'd talk to Mr. Shepherd, and also, if you have any surveys for your property, be sure he has those to be, you know, to
Yeah.
be sure that they have, you know, everything's correct here, so.
Oh,
okay.
I know, I realize that. I just wanted to make sure that, you know, I had a say in that part of it. I mean, I can understand that he, you know, he bought all that property a long time ago, not a long time, but a time ago. And I know that he probably wants to develop it, especially now with the cost of land and housing and everything's gone up skyrocketing. So of course you want to develop it. But the thing is that it's just the way it's situated with the development there that house number 3 is in question, that's all.
Okay, all right, like I said, you know, feel free to come back in next month and see if you can talk to him in the meantime.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
Okay.
Like I said, I didn't know exactly where to go, you know, with this. And so the thing is that this nice lady here was very helpful to me. And
Let the record reflect she's referring to Chris, so.
And,
Never mind.
and so anyway, she was helpful. She got
Okay.
me the map and stuff like that. And then as soon as I saw that the map was wrong, I'm sitting there going, wait a minute. And I said, and then I'm looking at it and I'm sitting there going, there's, you know, what do you call it? A large bit there and then nothing to my property. And my property is just about 2/3 of
Yeah,
theirs.
well, you know, part of the reason is they don't have permission to go on your property, so they
Yeah.
can't flag the wetlands there.
Yeah.
So, when you talk to Mr. Shepherd, if you want to suggest to him that they have permission to go on your property to do that, feel free if that's what the
Yeah.
applicant decides to do, so,
Yeah.
okay?
Right, you know, I just figured I'd come up and say my piece, if nothing else.
And you've done that, thank you.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
yeah, take care. So,
So I'll refer to Jim, ask him if he can do it sooner rather than later,
yeah,
and then we'll go from there.
yeah, exactly, and then we'll just continue this application until next month, so, okay?
And then you still want Alan to come next month?
I think it'd be helpful, as Jack mentioned, just to give us, if we have any questions, to give us perspective on it before we actually go out there and take a look. We can, later in July, we could take a look, but it'd probably be easier to hear from them first, right?
For me, yes.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Given the question that you had, regarding the flagging of the wetlands, this is something that you wanna engage somebody to look at? I mean, you do have a very detailed wetlands report
Yeah,
contained within this.
I think, let's go out there and take a look first and see what we think, and then decide before, you know, it's a fairly big piece of property, I don't wanna have to spend too much money if we can avoid it, so. And we'd have the whole month of August for somebody to go out there if we decide to do that, so, unless we decide to have a meeting, so, okay. All right, next item on the agenda, if I can find my,
One Beecher Road.
One Beecher Road, application for installation of a above-ground pool. Anyone here on that tonight?
Christian's here.
Oh, okay. So I just come on up for a second and sign in.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, how you doing? You just, if you want to sign the sheet there, then just put your name and address on it if you could, please, thanks. So, let me grab this. pools.
Pools.
Yeah, I know. And,
All right. My name is Christian Arias. I'm new in the town. I've been living here for like almost 3 months, I guess.
okay.
And I got 2 little kids, and I just,
And it's summer.
I just went out the pool.
Yeah, it looks like it's all in the upland area, right, Chris?
All in the upland area.
Yeah.
You know, I haven't physically been on the property, but I've driven by it any number of times, and if you're comfortable deferring it to me,
Yeah.
then I'll
Yeah,
work my magic.
just so you know how this works, if we were to take and handle the application, we couldn't do anything with it until next month, just by virtue of the statute. If we delegate it to Chris, however, as wetlands enforcement officer and authorized agent, she can look at it, issue a permit, because all the activity is beyond the wetland area, basically. So therefore, you don't lose part of the summer to get approval. So typically on these kind of things, we just delegate it to Chris to issue the permit, which will expedite the process for you, so.
Right.
Anybody have any questions or is opposed to that, or?
I'm not opposed to it. I just,
I think it shows right here, if I'm reading this right,
As you look at the house, it's on the
on the
right-hand
right
side.
side.
I got,
It's in a currently lawned area.
okay. Is the, what's,
Yeah.
where are the wetlands?
This
pond.
pond here.
Oh, this
Yeah.
pond, oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't, just
Okay.
having driven
That's
by
what I
there
thought
for
it
years
was.
and years, yeah.
Okay.
I don't think there's any other wetlands other than
Further
the
down
pond.
the,
The wetlands.
Oh, yeah, and
No.
the, yeah,
Yeah,
the other thing we're dealing with, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm,
and then the other side of the river.
Yeah.
No, I'm fine with that.
Fine.
Yeah.
Fine with delegating?
Fine. Flood segmentation, erosion controls during construction, yeah. Fine.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, I'm sure will take care of whatever
Yeah.
we need. It's an above-ground pool,
It's
correct?
above ground,
Yeah,
so.
mhm, yeah. So it'd be
We'll talk
really
about
no
what-
disturbance.
Whether he has to level it or not.
Yeah. All right, then do we have a motion to delegate it to Chris?
I'll make the motion to
Jack,
delegate to
Jack
Chris.
moved, Steve seconded, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstention? Okay, Chris will take care of you, and, you could deal with her over the next couple weeks.
Thank
Okay?
you.
All right, you're welcome. Have a good summer.
Next pool.
Okay, next pool, yes. All right, so I lost my agenda again. Anyway, it's 110 Maple Vale Drive, Christine McNamara, application for another above-ground pool.
Also in a currently lawned area.
Yeah, it's
This
also,
one I haven't driven by, but they were kind enough to let me go out there and take a look-see at it in advance of the meeting so that I could report back to you.
okay,
And it is in a currently lawned area, so, and there would be lawn between it and the wetlands, which are to the left.
yeah, and the thing we just deal with on these kind of things are backwash of the filter and that kind of thing, so that's which you can, I'm
Yeah, I
sure,
can deal with
run
that one.
through with them, so, okay.
I
So
told you
again-
it'd take longer to get here than to do this.
So it's, again, it's upland area, one area, above-ground pool, no big disturbance. It's summer. It's an appropriate thing to delegate to Chris if
Gas
everybody agrees.
prices are up, might as
Yeah.
well stay home.
Stay home.
Yeah. Any questions?
I make a motion to delegate this to our enforcement officer for further action.
Okay, we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Dave seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, you're done. You and Mr. Arias
I'll
can
talk
go,
to you
you and Mr. Arias can go meet with Chris at your convenience and get this taken care of, okay? All
I
right.
think you've got all the other stuff in.
Have a good evening.
We'll roll.
Yep. Okay, moving right along. Okay, we delegate. Continue. Okay, back to 10 and 14 Merritt Avenue, under old business now. Public hearing is closed, we can't get any more information from anyone, we have to think about what we got and what we want to do about it. Jim Preddy, Martin Brogy have moved, reviewed all the materials, and, as we said during the public hearing part of it, they provided quite a bit of stuff. The question is, I know Stephen doesn't really want to decide this tonight, I don't know how everybody else feels, so why don't we just hear from everybody, and, the options are we decide tonight, we think about it and decide next month,
My view is to put a wrap on it.
Yeah, I agree. You did.
Josh, what do you think?
I'd like to finish the business.
Yeah.
Yeah, my only concern with bumping is if people aren't around next month. You
Yeah,
know,
'cause that'd be July, right? Yeah. So.
yeah, and Jean hasn't been here for a couple meetings, so therefore she might decide anyway, probably, unless you watch the video. But Stephen, why don't you mention your concerns and maybe, and then we can decide what to do.
Well, so I'm considering a motion, and I was hoping after tonight's presentation to have sufficient time to develop it, a proposed motion, so that
To deny or condition, or what's the thought?
well, boy, you're asking a lot of questions.
Well, I'm trying to be, I'm turning the table, so
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah.
We're
Well,
holding people up.
yeah, I'm glad you asked. So my inclination is to deny the project, deny the application based upon its incompleteness as a chief ground or basis, because our regulations at section 7.5F, as in Frank, require that an applicant produce an application that sets forth prudent and feasible alternatives. Now, that's separate from the legal requirement that we have to find that there are no prudent and feasible alternatives if we had a public hearing based upon a potential for significant impact. That's all one body of law that Mr. Nuff, Attorney Nuff, alluded to when I raised this issue about prudent and feasible alternatives. So he did explain that area of the law. But there are substantial legal cases, including Purcell and Starble, which hold that the Commission's regulations, that if they provide that prudent and feasible alternatives must be included in an application, and the failure to include a prudent and feasible alternative in the application is sufficient in and of itself to deny the application as being incomplete. My position is, I believe that there are prudent and feasible alternatives to the project proposed at the site. Before I tell you what I think those prudent and feasible alternatives are, I will tell you, I do believe that there is a site, there is a project for that site. But I believe that developing it in a more prudent manner, in a feasible manner, would be best for the resource and protecting the resource. And what am I thinking, from what I've heard from the experts and all, would be prudent and feasible alternative is a fewer dwellings in the upland review area, which serves important functions in the maintenance of the wetlands and watercourses. So I believe that, as I said, I think that there are alternatives to the proposal that we see here, and those alternatives include constructing fewer buildings in the upland review area. As it stands right now, almost half of the buildings are almost entirely in the upland review area. 6 lots are almost entirely in the upland review area. We heard a little bit from Mr. Broggie about the value of upland review areas, and if I had an opportunity to develop this a little more, I'd be able to explain in greater detail where I think the applicant is falling short, where I think the project falls short in that term. So one of the prudent and feasible alternatives, as I have said a few times now, is constructing fewer dwellings or structures in the upland review area. But other prudent and feasible alternatives include leaving more space between the wetland and the edge of the construction. So we have a 100-foot wetland review area, and we have houses that are proposed to be developed within tens of feet of the wetland. So I believe that there are prudent and feasible alternatives to the proposal, and I don't believe that the applicant has developed them for us as they're required to do under our regulations in section 7.5F, which is separate from what Attorney Nuff had explained to us some weeks ago or a month or so ago on the other requirement about prudent and feasible alternatives. So there's this other requirement out there, and cases are holding that the Commission's regulations that require proposing prudent and feasible alternatives are actually required under the state statute and that scheme of 22A. So the commissions more and more are including the requirement that the applicants establish that there's no prudent and feasible alternative to the proposal, because it just makes good environmental sense. It's part of the planning process, and I think this commission has been deprived of alternatives that are less pose less danger to the wetlands and watercourses. So that's my chief ground for the denial, is the application is incomplete because of the failure to include a prudent and feasible alternative explanation for why it must be as it's proposed. So that alone, I think, is sufficient grounds for a denial of the application. I would also move to deny based upon the negative physical impacts that are that are expecting to have an effect on the physical characteristics of the wetlands. What do I mean by that? Well, the applicant's engineers explained that they're going to take 90% of the stormwater that falls on that property and inject it into a detention basin. Well, if it goes there, it's not going to recharge the wetland, and it's not going to recharge the water table, which is inextricably intertwined with the wetland and the physical characteristics of the wetland. So I believe that the development and the intrusion as intense as it is in the upland review area will result in negative physical impacts to the resource that we are required to protect in the form of dewatering, as I said. I believe also that the depriving those wetlands in the south and east of the water that would normally flow over, if you believe Mr. Kinney when he says that the soils there are impacted, and therefore with construction debris and all, which would have no permeability, so all that stuff's going to sheet flow. But at the same time, he also calls those areas, he identifies those areas as having well-drained soils. So the applicant's expert is wants to have it both ways when he characterizes the soils at the property as historically impacted and then well-drained. They can't be both. And I think the applicant has played the benefits or advantages or deflected the concerns of the commission based upon how it perceives, how it wants to interpret those soils on the property and how those soils will relate to the health of the wetlands and watercourses. So as you heard me say at the hearing, if we have less water going into the wetland areas to the south and the east from the development, that's going to leave those wetlands with less water to filter out those heavily impacted discharges from the Merritt Parkway. So we're going to have wetlands that are now receiving discharges of heavily contaminated pollutants, let's say, that could be the presumption on a highway, the discharge with the oil and hydrocarbons. And we have no flushing activity whatsoever from anywhere else on the property that currently helps mitigate and facilitate the uptake of those pollutants before that wetland drains into the West River. You heard Mr. Brogy say that the West River is very hot now. People are really paying attention to the water quality there, and I believe that the quality of those wetlands to the southeast that take those discharges from the highway directly impact the water quality to the West River, because otherwise the next rain is going to flush those contaminants from the wetlands into the West River without having any opportunity for any of the bio uptake or so that would take place if the area were still wet. Another reason, I believe there's an insufficient record on the matter of whether or not there's a vernal pool on the property.
Well, no, I mean, we've had two
Oh,
experts
we-
already address that, yeah. Yeah.
So that's my
Okay.
third reason
No,
of going in order of significance.
All right, no, I appreciate your comments. I think the upland development, I'd be more concerned about that if the topography were different. You know, the topography there is fairly flat. If it were steeply, you know, if it was, the grade was steeped in some fashion, then I'd be more concerned about the upland development. As I mentioned before, I almost think that capturing the water that's in that area, putting it into the compensatory storage basin and the detention basin will actually help the area as far as the flooding goes. I don't put much weight into
But
those
the
wetlands.
flooding isn't our concern.
No, I know, but, well, it is, if it all ends up in the river immediately. Because that, if your concern is contaminants coming off the highway and everything just floods into the river because nothing's retained.
That that wetland would become inundated and negatively physically impacted by the flush of solely impacted stormwater and not the fresh water from the rest of the
We're
development.
assuming there's horizontal flow across the land, and we've heard testimony that it's mostly vertical into the water table.
Well, and that's part of my point, Josh, when I said, what are the soils out there? Because I think the applicant has it both ways. They're
Our
both.
engineer has said that.
Say that
He
again?
agree- Our engineer has said that the water is mostly vertical, not horizontal. So I
Well-
don't think that recharging the wetland, which we already started out saying is a sort of a human-created wetland, by building the Merritt Parkway and putting the drains there, is significantly impacted by this development. I just don't see it.
And if less surface runoff goes into those wetland areas, which really just serve as a catch basin for the highway, I think less surface runoff into those wetland areas will have be less likely to flush all those contaminants into the West River. And they would most likely settle out in the wetland areas that remain at the bank, at the foot of the hill there.
Yes, but that would have a negative physical effect, would tend to cause the plants in that wetland to die.
But to be honest with you, I don't put much value in those wetlands, because
Okay.
they're just it's just a drainage ditch off a highway where, go ahead, Jack.
I was gonna say, the drains that have been plugged there have been cleared now, right? And they're functioning
That's what the
again?
state says.
Like the
That's
state
what the
did?
state has said.
So
They
some of that flow
periodically
is not
clear-
gonna get to that wetline anyway, to add to your comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
And in fact,
you
those
did- we-
wetlands-
I
They
shared
may
with you
disappear.
an
We got a
email
letter from them,
that
yeah.
we had gotten from the state saying
For
that
the
they
same
do
reasons that they got
periodically
created,
maintain it, so-
they may go away.
I understand that.
So, I see, the topography as it exists now does tend to
I think we
sheet
ought to have a
flow.
motion next month and vote one way or another.
Or we just dispose of it tonight. I mean, if
I
people aren't
would
gonna,
be happy to
if
vote for
people
it
aren't
then,
gonna
vote
change their
now.
mind between now and next month, I don't see any point in waiting
No,
until
there's
next
no
month,
new
because I don't think
information.
Steven's gonna change his mind. I'm not gonna change my mind. I'm
Right.
pretty much decided based on what I've heard. I
Right.
don't know how everybody else feels, but
I'm ready.
Yeah, I'm ready.
would you rather wait till next month, or would you rather, oh, no, okay, all right.
Fine with me. My main concern was that, that you heard what my position was and that I would move to deny it. I hope that some of you are moved by the fact that I believe that there is an opportunity to receive a proposal here that's less detrimental to the wetland and watercourses. So again, my attitude is not that there's no project that should be developed here. My attitude is that this project is too expansive for the site based upon the position of the dwellings in the upland review area, the impacts on the wetlands, and again, chiefly, that the application is incomplete. We shouldn't be left wondering, is there a better plan out there? That should have been part of the presentation, I believe, because our regulations provide for it. And many appeals are sustained in the court because of the Commission's reliance on the fact that the application was incomplete because there were no prudent and feasible. So I believe the Commission's on firm ground if it did deny, based upon the application being incomplete, and I think it might foster a more responsible development proposal next time. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right, then, since the majority wants to at least, present a motion to approve it with some conditions, the thought being that we have a bond estimate of 20,000. The applicant had agreed to make a couple revision off the last set of plans that were proposed, and Chris, I've sort of forgotten in the midst of this what they were.
So John Paul's
There
letter
was
recently.
a pathway to the basin, and there was pruning and cutting. Those were, conditions of approval, and also, the 3 years of monitoring and maintenance,
Yeah, and the guarantee of,
and the guarantee that the plants
viability,
would be
yeah.
viable and
So-
stay.
and the plans themselves have numerous, conditions that will incorporate by reference in the last set of plans are what we're approving, so.
Because they had stated was that the pathway to the basin that's part of the, Conservation Commission thing that's still being,
Yeah, that part of it will
They
have to
haven't
be worked
finalized
out
yet.
in some fashion. so.
And we still have the split rail fence in there.
I
That
don't,
was,
I don't remember, did we,
they
There was gonna
proposed
be
it, but I don't know.
Oh, I don't
You'd
know.
have to look at the plans to.
because I know it was in there at one time. The
Yeah.
only thing I would like to see added to that are our normal.
oh, the normal
the
conditions,
The
yeah.
normal conditions
The
and
usual
the,
stipulations.
and the
I remember seeing
signs
them.
that would go on the
Recently.
split rail, the markers.
At one point, they were there, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, the plan says is the proposed fence.
Okay, yeah, it's on the
they're-
landscape.
Yeah, they're on
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Okay, all
But-
right. And we'll just have them add placards, as another condition of approval if it passes.
So
I mean, I
if you
think
wanna
that-
go through what your conditions are, so I don't lose any, so you've got a bond estimate of 20,000, a landscaping, as shown on the landscaping plan.
Right, that'll include the fence,
Yeah.
and we'll just add placards. Why don't we delegate that as far as placement to you, as far as where they should go? Okay, Chris?
And then you wanna have your maintenance agreement, in form and, as you've previously done with town council.
Yeah, exactly, and 3 years for viability and maintenance reports,
We'll
yeah.
wait till the end.
Yeah, well,
Or
we'll
a
probably be able to
portion of it,
scale it
scale
down
it.
at some point, yeah. We could scale down the bond as the 3 years runs, so.
Right, so it's initial bond of
20,000, yeah, and that's just for soil and erosion control and planting, the planting plan, whatever TP&Z wants to do. They'll probably do something for the construction of the, drainage, right?
Yeah, and then they'll have a monumentation bond, which is
Okay,
separate.
yeah. What else did we,
Do you want them to come back to you just to have you review and agree to whatever any pathway might be constructed of? Because originally, I think at last month's meeting, you discussed that it could be gravel or it could be just natural.
yeah, I don't know, I don't really,
Input for Conservation Commission, maybe?
I guess,
Well, the Conservation Commission was deciding what they were gonna be having for open space and whether it was gonna be a trail and where it was gonna be.
okay.
Maintenance, and that's all part of the maintenance, right? And whether it's gravel or,
Well, the maintenance is the plantings,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not the trail. That's
I-
why I'm asking.
yeah,
Do you
mhm.
want do you want it, not that it would be an amendment to your permit if you approve it, but just to have you have
I,
it,
I think we could be flexible on that,
Okay.
you know, and just whatever they decide to do. I hate to have, it- yeah, yeah,
Pervious.
exactly, yeah, yeah, so,
it's not gonna be
Okay.
asphalt.
yeah, I'm not gonna worry about that, so.
Whether it's
Okay.
mulch or bark or-
I think that's about it.
Maintained.
Yeah.
and then Marty had mentioned that there was one other thing that he had mentioned about pruning and cutting.
Yeah.
So I can go back into his comments from June 9th and pull that in.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Trimming some trees and
Mhm.
cutting the vines that were growing
Right,
on
yeah,
it.
exactly.
I think it was the invasives.
Getting
that he was
the
talking
invasive
Yeah, yeah,
species
yeah,
and-
removal of invasives and vines along the trees, on the trees along the river, so.
Yeah.
All right, with all that, do we have a motion?
I'll make the
And,
motion.
whoa,
What?
I need to know why you're approving this thing as part of this motion.
That's true. It's consistent, well, I'll say it's consistent with our regulations, and, what do we have to say, like best in, best practices or something like that, consistent with environmental best practices for development of the property, so.
Well, you can review to your consultants that supported the plan
Yeah,
as
true,
being.
yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, experts.
We did.
Anything else anyone wants to add, other than no?
Well, so you'll move for a motion, and then there'll be some discussion, and then we'll have a vote?
Yeah, yep, so
That's your motion?
that's our motion, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone wanna make it? I usually don't make motions, but I'll good.
Jack's
Go
gonna
ahead,
make
you
it.
can make it.
Okay, I'll make the motion this time.
I need a second
I'll
before you
second
can
it.
discuss. You can't second your own motion, come on.
No, you make the motion,
I'll second.
Dave seconded it.
Dave seconded, okay. Now
All
you
right,
can have
discussion.
discussion.
Steven,
Yeah, again, thank you. Bob, you've done a great job in the proceeding, and I'd like to compliment the applicants' team. They've no doubt deferential and, bent over backwards to try to produce whatever the commission sought of it and the team. But I do feel that the commission is misguided in approving the plan without really standing on the requirement that we have prudent and feasible alternatives provided to us during the application process. Just sets a dangerous precedent going forward, because now we have our regulations, and then we have an application that went through without, in my opinion, a thorough adherence to our regulations. So I think that produces a small dilemma for us. And as I said, I do believe that I know that the courts do not sustain appeals where commissions have denied based on incompleteness for failure to produce prudent and feasible alternatives in accordance with the commission's regulations. So I can't be more vociferous on the point. And I do believe that if the commission did reject the application, that I think we would get a better proposal for the natural resources out there and the people of Woodbridge. So thank you.
okay. Yeah, given our regulation of upland areas has to show a direct impact on the wetlands, and given the fact we've had engineers and Mr. Brogy both look at the application and come to the conclusion that it wouldn't have a negative impact on the wetlands, I disagree that it is something that we can deny in this situation. Like I said before, I'm not crazy about the zoning, and we'll see if TP&Z has any views on that when it gets to them, but I'm comfortable with, from a wetlands perspective, we've done our job, so. All right, anybody else want to discuss, or do we vote and get this over with? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Abstentions? 4-1, it's approved,
Good government.
so.
Good government.
Yeah, and we don't have to all agree on everything, that's for sure, so. All right,
Thank you, enjoy the summer.
Yep, you too, take care. All right, next item, so we can go home eventually. Enforcement officer report. Chris, anything to talk about?
Yeah, there was, a neighbor who had raised concerns about, at the end of Wolf Tree, there's, drainage that goes off, and this was from 21 Wolf Tree, where we had part of the cease and desist order on the clearing and whatnot. There were some trees that were pushed towards the right-hand side of that house. I did go out there with David Lord, and we did walk the wetland corridor that's there. There are trees that are there. They are on the upslope side from the corridor itself. The corridor itself is not blocked by any of those trees. David specifically noted, and it was very evident that we were out there, that the wetland that's in there is kind of Humpty Dumpty. And so part of the neighbors' concerns was that there were, stagnant areas that are in there, but by the nature of the terrain of the wetland that's there, there are areas that will pool and have stagnant water just because of the Humpty Dumptiness of the terrain. So neither one of us thought that there was anything that required any further remediation in terms of, removing the things that are there. They're upland of the stream corridor that's down there, as much as it is a defined stream corridor. And as I say, we did walk it from the beginning of the cul-de-sac down into it. We also looked at the progress that's been made in terms of reclamation on 15 and 21. He thought that the plantings were gonna be getting done this was 2 lakes ago that I was out there, so he thought that the plantings might be being done sooner now, and whatnot. And there's already evidence that there's some natural growth that's coming back up there, now that the original wetland soil's been revealed again by the material that's been pulled back. The wattles that are there have some natural growth coming out of them, which is, very encouraging and whatnot. So, and there was no evidence of really any scour that was in there, so there's nothing negative getting to the wetlands that are on the land trust property to the north, I guess. So, that's
Great.
what I got to report to you.
And on that Ansonia Road thing?
They're still working with David Lord. He
Okay,
did
good.
go out there. There was a minimal amount of fill that had been placed in the wetlands, so he's working on a restoration plan that would require pulling back some plantings and whatnot. So I'm in hopes that we'll see that for your July meeting. But I've been in contact with both him and the gentleman who's assisting the homeowners with getting their application made.
Okay, great.
Anything going on with the high school and the
I
Football
forwarded
field.
you the information that we were able to get, or I was able to get from Quinnipiac Valley Health District. I did forward the information or the concerns that were raised to the high school. I got no response back from the high school. But Quinnipiac Valley and Quinnipiac, and I think I also forwarded you the information that QVHD got from DEEP in terms of, they are not particularly concerned at this stage of the game. What was interesting when I looked at the Regional Water Authority site is that, just as a graphic of what they're talking about, if you took a football field and filled it with 43 feet of water, the amount of particulate that they're searching for is a droplet of water in that 43-foot deep football field. And part of what they also said was that it's very difficult because there is a natural, well, it's not natural, because you have tires and whatnot that are on the road, there is a certain amount of runoff of PFAS and PFOS just from the road, and it's very difficult to differentiate between what's coming from there and what's coming from somewhere else. So at this point, the bottom line is we don't have anybody that's been offered up as someone who can test. They did offer that private people can have their wells tested, but they would have to go to a specific company that was capable of testing for PFAS and PFOS, which is more detailed testing.
Excuse me. Anything else anybody had questions about? Okay. Excuse me. So we'll do a site visit, excuse me, for Rimmon Road once, we have next month's presentation, we'll
Right.
schedule it after that time,
Yep.
so. Tell you what, why don't you do the minutes, let me get you a drink of water, I'm sorry.
Want a hop chew?
What?
It's a sucking candy that's remarkably effective at helping you not cough.
Interesting. What's the brand?
HOPJES. Gee. It's Danish, and it's, if you go to a lot of theater and you don't want to cough during the show,
No.
this is the answer.
I knew there was a
have
link
that.
to the theater coming in from this.
It works. It's a coffee flavored sort
Oh,
of,
it's not licorice?
Lozenge.
no, it's not. It's,
A lot of the Scandinavian stuff is licorice flavored as
it's,
well. Okay, so your next regular meeting is July 20th. You have 2 sets of minutes, I think, that I gave you.
Yep.
yes.
Wait,
And
let's
Jean's
see.
not here, so,
There were a
but
couple
I
of
did
things.
use the editor thing, so if you found something, let me know.
I,
I didn't actually.
I did.
But that, I'm not a very good editor.
on April 27th,
Hang on a sec. Okay,
there are a couple of different versions of recontinued in there. Recontinued,
oh,
one with a space, one with a hyphen, and the correct version of it should be one word.
okay.
No space, no
So on
hyphen.
page 3, we have recontinued correctly.
Yeah, the chairman then recontinued
The public.
the public hearing, that's the
And the
correct word.
recontinuation on page 1 is okay, but in the second line, it should be joined together.
Joined together, that's correct, and on page,
And where else did I do it wrong?
on page, right above the where it's correct on page 3, in the paragraph right above it.
Ah. Okay.
And then also on page 2, in the second set of bullets, the bottom bullet, the basin, I didn't understand what was being written here. The basin floor elevation is 76 feet. What impact does that have on the infiltration? I guess there should be a period in a new sentence with what, and a question mark.
Yeah. It should be that.
I think that's all I had in there.
Other than that,
That's what I had.
Any other comments?
The April one,
No. Okay, do we have a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
I'll make a motion to approve the
Jack
first
moves.
minutes.
yeah,
Steve,
sec.
Steve, oh,
David?
oh, David seconded,
Yeah.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstentions, all set with that. Moving on to May 18th.
I don't have anything on that one.
Anybody else have anything?
I did recontinue
Yeah, I see
correctly.
recontinue
I wasn't
correct, yeah.
here, so I don't know.
All right, so not hearing any modifications or corrections, do we have a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
I will make a
Jack
motion.
moved. Josh seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, okay. We're done with that. We have nothing left for Jean to look at.
She's not gonna be happy.
Okay,
No,
let's
she'll
see.
be able to read the ones from tonight.
That's true, too. Anything else we need to talk about tonight?
Nope, I will let you know as soon as we get a report back, and if it's not before your next regular meeting, then I won't worry about trying to get you together to schedule a site inspection.
Bob,
Yes.
while it's not as important as a wetland matter, what about our potluck dinner?
Oh, yeah,
Well, that's after the.
yeah, we'll talk about that after the meeting, so.
Point is, so we definitely wouldn't have it for next month.
Oh, no.
No, but we discuss it after the meeting.
After the meeting, so it doesn't have to be broadcast all over TV.
Oh, yeah, okay, I'm sorry.
No, it's no big deal. Anything else we need to talk about? That's directly agency business, so, no, okay, then we motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
Stephen moved, Jack seconded, all in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 8:35, we're done, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.